Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
WMAL. 7:06 on O'Connor and Company here this Thursday morning. If you hear the Latin beat, you know that we're joined by Mercedes Diana Schlapp all morning long. Good
Hola,
morning,
Larry.
How's your Miami rhythm going today?
My Miami rhythm is finally, I think I needed a cup of coffee. I was really dragging this morning, but no, I'm ready to go. And I know
Did you have some of that
you
Cuban
people out there
coffee?
driving, getting to work, you feel the same way. It's like
Yes,
I can't
absolutely.
believe
You
it's
need that-
Thursday.
you
It's
need
like,
that
let's get to
jolt.
Friday.
Hey, our show is that morning caffeinated jolt, baby. You don't need coffee.
I
You
know.
just need us.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Coming up
You
at
have such the
7:35,
best
Representative Andrew
attitude.
Clyde of Georgia. If you're wondering why Black Lives Matter Plaza is not going to be Black Lives Matter Plaza anymore, it's because of him. At 8:05, KT McFarland will be here, and then at 8:35, Chuck Tease, DC political analyst. I got to ask him whether Muriel Bowser is going to respond to Trump's ultimatum here. Clean up this city, or I'll do it. That's all coming up. Joining us right now, though, is Reagan Reese, who's got to be tired herself, a little jet-lagged maybe, although she traveled in style with Vice President J.D. Vance on Air Force Two, sort of. I don't know if they actually call it Air Force Two, but it's fun to say. Down to the border. Reagan, first of all, are you still down there, or did you make it back to D.C.?
No, we literally did the trip in one day. So I was
Nice.
like literally, I think we landed at 9:30 last night, yeah.
It was very cool. And Vice President Vance, along with other Catholic members of the party there, got their ashes on the tarmac at Andrews. Wait, did you get ashes there with the Vice President?
I did. So this was really neat. I had asked at the beginning of the trip, did the vice president receive his ashes? And they said, I think there's a possibility he gets them on the trip. And I've never missed getting my ashes. And so I was at first hoping we were going to be back in time for me to go to Mass. And then when we arrived at Air Force Two to leave the border, I noticed that there was a chaplain there. And, I asked, will I be able to get my ashes? And they were like, maybe. Vance got his ashes. His personal aide got his ashes. And then Vance's team, rushed me in there. I got my ashes and then loaded me up on the plane. And we were in the air a couple minutes later.
That's
I
very
love
cool.
it. I love it. I got to ask you, so, you're down there with Vice President J.D. Vance after an incredible speech given by President Trump, obviously honing in on this issue of the southern border and the actions taken by this administration. What was the message coming out of, coming from Vance, coming from D&I Director Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth?
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate what you said, this trip was super unique because the Secretary of Defense and the D&I Director, Tulsi Gabbard, also joined Vance on this trip. Vance repeated one line consistently throughout the trip, and I think it was President Trump's best line of the night. Turns out we didn't need Congress to act. We needed a new president, and that president is President Trump. And talking about, it was almost like a victory lap at the border, talking about all of the actions that President Trump has taken and how now finally in Texas they're feeling relief. Even in Eagle Pass, we were in Eagle Pass yesterday, which was once this hub for illegal immigrants, and it was nearly silent. And they were talking about, what to do now and kind of taking this victory lap because President Trump was able to take action. So that was really the overall message of the trip.
That's amazing. When you talk to Border Patrol agents and people who are actually finally able to enforce the law, do you get the sense from them that this is now the permanent status quo, that they will, this isn't just, a temporary fix, that they're actually going to be able to lock this down now, secure the border, and continue these operations during the entire Trump presidency?
Yeah, I think Vice President Vance said, they are hoping to finish the border. That's the goal, to finish this border, to kind of set them up for long-term success. But, there are obviously things that could always happen, and there are aspects and elements of the border that we saw yesterday that are built by Governor Greg Abbott when he was in this battle against the Biden administration. But that's definitely certainly the hope amongst the Border Patrol agents. I think that there is a lot more enthusiasm. I think they have a lot more hope, and their morale has raised with the fact that they're getting more federal help. And now I think that is left, for example, Texas National Guard members, they're going to be able to be relieved of some of their duties at the border because the federal government is willing to help them. And I think that's a sign of, what we can expect at the southern border to come.
I got to ask you, you obviously went with several members of the legacy media. What's their reaction as Daily Caller now is pretty much you all are traveling with these cabinet members, traveling with the vice president, traveling with the president. I mean, this is definitely a game changer in what we're seeing in the media operations.
It was a really small crew yesterday. There were just 6 of us total in the press pool, the traveling press pool. It was the Blaze, the Daily Caller, the Washington Post, and CBS. And, for the most part, when you are on pool duty, it's kind of like a team effort trying to get information out to your colleagues that are not on the ground. But, you do hear some quips here and there. Like I got this yesterday from a member that joined us on the ground there. You got 2 questions and I got none. And it's like the vice president did not know who I was when he called on me. I just was able to yell a little bit louder than you, so that's kind of, those are the clips that I'm getting now and then, but you kind of just got to block it out.
Reagan, did you just look at them and say, cry more?
Cry me a river.
I was in the middle seat. That person was next to me, and the person who was on the other end of me ended up not coming in our van. And so I just slowly moved over to this next seat away from this guy. And I was like, I want to get some photos as we're driving by.
See, it's the class and decorum of a Hillsdale Charger shining through there. So I appreciate that. Take the high road, as we always do. Tell me a little bit more also about the morale that you saw there from the Border Patrol agents. They must feel so much better in their job, knowing now that, they didn't volunteer to be law enforcement agents on the border so that they could just process people, many of them who were victims of human trafficking. They must feel great that they're actually doing the job that they wanted to do.
Yeah, I wish I got to see a little bit more of them. So what Vice President Vance did yesterday was he did an aerial tour of the border in a Black Hawk with Hegseth, with Tulsi. They were all in that Black Hawk. We came down and landed, and we went to the Eagle Pass Border Patrol facility. There, he met with agents. He hosted a roundtable where Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, the chief of the Border Patrol were present. That was mostly closed door. He was scheduled to take a tour of the detention facility, and so I believe that Vance had got good opportunities to talk to those agents who were once at the center of this Border Patrol, this border crisis.
Quick follow-up here, Reagan Reese, Daily Caller, and I'm sorry, I'm under the gun, but the fact that Hegseth and Gabbard were with you, it just, recently the drug cartels have been designated terrorist organizations. Did they speak to what that means now in terms of a national security footing and what role the military might have here?
So Vance did say that there was no real effort. I think he was asked if we were ever going to use military services, if there were thoughts to use military personnel in Mexico to kind of ramp that up, and he said no. Hegseth and Tulsi did not take any questions at the press conference. Is that because maybe everybody had questions for J.D. Vance? Possibly. So we didn't get any more clarity on that during the trip. They just gave brief remarks about how they were, happy to be here and happy with the progress of the border. So those are still things, unfortunately, that we need more answers to.
All right. Reagan Reese, Daily Caller, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the trip.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a fun one.
Thank you.
It is 7:16.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
It's now 7:17. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Mercedes Schlapp. And Mercedes, we're starting to see some progress here in the District of Columbia, thanks to the new Trump administration. Unlike any other city in the country, we really do benefit from focus by the president, the executive branch, and the legislative branch because Washington, D.C., of course, is a federal district. We're not a state, not a city within a state. Right. So there's a lot of oversight. And if the president says, hey, we need to fix this town, then the mayor and the district council, they need to respond, regardless of the fact that the president is of a different political party. And that's certainly clear in this case. The U.S. attorney, Ed Martin, he is sort of taking the reins now, and as he put it, make D.C. safe again by cracking down on gun crime. It's amazing how D.C. is famous for having some of the biggest restrictions and most horrible restrictions on we U.S. citizens being able to defend ourselves with a firearm. And yet criminals with guns seem to just have a heyday in this town, and Ed Martin's done with that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that they want to make D.C. safe again, which I think for all of us in the area who, you know, at times we go and eat in D.C. or go to a show at D.C. or do work in D.C. We've seen the uptick of homicides. We've seen the crime that's happened in D.C. And so this now I love the fact that they're saying we got to stop. This is a nation's capital. People from all over the globe come here. We need to make sure it's a safe city. We got to crack down on these gun crimes, and we need to make sure that we get a handle on what's happening in the city. So, look, I think it's much needed change. They've worked so hard on focusing Mayor Bowser on getting Black Lives Matter street, printed right in front of the White House. Like, let's get rid of all of that. Let's hone in on making this city what it is. It's a grandiose, it's an incredible capital. I mean, you go across the globe. I mean, when I go to Budapest or some of these other capitals, just so much better how it's run, how it's so clean, and we need to set those expectations again and fix the city.
Yeah. And Ed Martin, the U.S. attorney here in D.C., has said that he's going to flood the zone and flood the district court with cases. They're going to prosecute people. They're going to throw away the key, which is the opposite of what his predecessor did. People were not even charged even after cops arrested them for crimes involving guns. Don't take a backseat to any of these people with regard to, common sense gun safety legislation, as they always put it, when they try to restrict your ability to defend yourself with a gun. Because when they actually catch a criminal who used a gun in the course of a crime, they don't want to prosecute them because of their own, racial justice reasons. Not anymore. By the way, I love this. D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson, he doesn't like the slogan, make D.C. safe again. He says, no, I don't like how that sounds. Let's call it make D.C. safer. Dude, there were 890 murders from 21 to 24. 10 years before, there were 405 murders. Okay, so we are less safe than we were 10 years ago, and we want to make D.C. safer. It's the perfect slogan.
Well, and Donald Trump, on his Truth Post, we have notified the mayor of Washington, D.C., that she must clean up all the unsightly homeless encampments in the city, specifically including the ones outside of the State Department and near the White House. If she is not capable of doing so, we will be forced to do it for her. Washington, D.C. must become clean and safe. This is exactly what we were talking about. We want to be proud of our great capital again. Thank you, Mayor Bowser, for your efforts on behalf of the citizens of our country. Hopefully, you will be successful. I love
that
it
so much. I love it too. Thank you, President Trump, for sending that message. It's great. You clean the city up, or we'll do it, but it's going to get clean. I'm telling you, this goes back to the Reagan administration because the media loved to show pictures of the White House, but in the foreground, people living on the streets and sidewalks, because they think it's like some scene out of Les Miserables, where we've got the downtrodden here, the underclass who were poverty-stricken and living on the sidewalk. If you're living on the sidewalk in Washington, D.C., it's because you've chosen to do that. There are plenty, trust me, we are spending plenty of money to take care of you.
But there's people that do have mental health issues, and we don't have the facilities to take care of them. So I think that there's a lot of that as well. And it's just so tragic. You go to Union Station. I was just there yesterday. It was, one homeless person after the other. But you could tell like they're not good right in the head. There's a lot of drugs also associated with that.
With all due respect, you're right that they have either an addiction problem or a mental health problem, but we do, in fact, have the facilities to take care of them. We spend plenty of money on those facilities, but human rights activists have fought for those people's right to live with their addictions and their dementia on the sidewalks. We need to be able to keep our city clean and take those people and give them the help they need, even if in their drug or mentally incapacitated facilities think they don't want that help. No, we as a society should be able to provide that help so that they don't make our lives more dangerous.
Exactly.
Coming up, we're going to speak at 7:35 with Congressman Andrew Clyde, who pushed Muriel Bowser on the BLM Plaza, and then Chuck Pease is going to join us at 8:35. Right now it's 7:23. I want to touch
now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
And at 7:37, O'Connor and Company on this Thursday, 6th day of March. Thanks so much for being part of our morning routine, and we're honored that we get to be a part of yours. Coming up at 8:05, Katie McFarland, and then 8:35, Chuck Tease, D.C. political analyst, about, this apparent possible showdown between the executive branch, President Trump, and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. We'll get to all that coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with the Latinx Mercedes Schlapp.
Latinx.
You're Latinx.
I'm a Latina.
Mercy,
Latinx. There's no such thing as Latinx. Come on.
I'm just triggering you. 2-block stretch of 16th Street Northwest between H Street and K Street that leads right into Lafayette Square was renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza, of course, naming it after the organization that in some chapters has celebrated the Hamas terrorists. Many chapters have been guilty of laundering money, it appears, of people who have donated to them. It's a bad organization, as noble as the idea might be. It was a divisive move by Muriel Bowser, and she is now reversing those plans. She's going to rename Black Lives Matter Plaza, and it's mostly because of our next guest, Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia, who joins us now. Thank you, Congressman, for taking up this cause. We appreciate it, some of us who have to live and work in D.C., who never liked this move by Muriel Bowser.
Well, good morning, y'all. Thank you very much. I'm honored to serve Georgia's 9th District and to serve our country as well here in D.C.
Well, and I think it's important for somebody outside of Washington, D.C. to comment on this, because this city, it's a federal district, it is our capital city, and it belongs to every person in this country. And sadly, the district council and the mayor have acted like it's their little fiefdom, and they can do whatever the hell they want.
And you're exactly correct. This is America's capital city, and it is for all Americans, all citizens. This is our nation's capital, and it is not just, as you said, the mayor's little fiefdom. Black Lives Matter as an organization is a radical defund the police organization, and we are not a defund the police nation. Absolutely not. And this slogan has to go, and it is past time. It never should have been there in the first place, but I think it was put there just right in front of the White House as kind of an in-your-face thing to the president, and this needs to be removed. And the only way they're going to remove it is if they're forced to. And this piece of legislation adds some teeth to it and denies them federal funding until they take action and remove this disastrous, divisive slogan from the streets of Washington, D.C.
Does this piece of legislation, will it just require the 50+1 votes? Is it just a majority?
This particular piece of legislation, no. This would have to bypass it would have to comply with the Senate filibuster. But in the House, it would just be simply a majority. But there are a number of ways to do this. This is a standalone piece of legislation, but we can also put it in an appropriation. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and I can do that. I can put it in the Financial Services General Government Appropriation, and that way it has a much greater opportunity because that's a must-pass bill.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And by the way, let's not forget when the crime bill was making its way through the Senate, they got a filibuster-proof majority, and that was under a Democrat majority. It was a 50-50 with Kamala Harris casting the passing vote. And that's why this is important, I think, because not only does it send a message to the rest of the country, but it also sends a message to the district council that they got to get their act together. I mean, do you think, especially in conjunction with President Trump's statement that he made yesterday, that Muriel Bowser has to clean up the homeless encampments and make the city clean again, are we moving toward rescinding home rule? It's a failed experiment, this home rule thing, over the last 50 years. I think they've proven that they can't rule themselves here in Washington.
Well, stand by for that. Just hang on. It's coming down the pike.
Oh, you're teasing us. I like it. So have you heard from the mayor's office? Because she said, okay, fine, I'm going to change it. But, she'll drag her feet on this. You want to call it Liberty Plaza. And I love the fact that that's anathema. It's like, oh, no, we can't call it Liberty. We can't have liberty here in Washington, D.C.
Well, that is what our country is all about, liberty. Liberty for individual American citizens. And we are the shining light in the entire world, of the entire world for liberty. And so we thought that was an appropriate name. And so that's what we put here. And until you twist the mayor's arm, okay, until you force them to do something, there's just simply not going to, which is why this particular bill has some teeth in it. And it's going to deny 50% of their federal transportation funding until they accomplish it.
So it looks like Mayor Muriel Bowser, she did release a statement saying we have long considered Black Lives Matter Plaza's evolution, and the plaza will be part of DC's America 250 mural project, where we will invite students and artists to create new murals across all 8 wards. The mural inspired millions of people and helped our city through a very painful period, but we now can't afford to be distracted by meaningless congressional interference. She might be talking about you. The devastating impacts of the federal job cuts must be our number one concern. Our focus is on economic growth, public safety, and supporting our residents affected by these cuts. So, Congressman, obviously, I do have to say she did meet with President Trump, and it was a constructive meeting. I mean, how is that relationship with the mayor?
You mean with the president or with me?
With you and, yes, with you.
Well, I can't say that I've ever met with the mayor except maybe in an oversight hearing where they get to testify and Jamie Comer's the chairman there. But I was on oversight the first 2 years I was in Congress. But, meaningless interference by Congress, excuse me, Madam Mayor, but Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, might I remind you of the Constitution, okay, the Congress shall have the power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district. So I'm sorry, but the Constitution, that pesky little document that created our government and that the left just doesn't seem to want to acknowledge because it's so restrictive. I mean, it's just the desires of our founding fathers. That's all.
Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde, really, I mean, this is like, holy water on a vampire here. You got liberty and the Constitution thrown at him. You're really asking for trouble. Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate you helping us make D.C. great again. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Great to be on WMAL.
What a great laugh there. We like that, Congressman. 744. I'm told Texas is famous for their beef, but I'll be honest with you, Mercedes, you and I, we've been able to enjoy some good Virginia cattle recently. Some good steaks coming out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we share a physician,
in my freezer, basically.
In your freezer, that is correct. You're replete with steaks.
I got the call from Larry I'm like, hey, I'm at the farmhouse, and we just took out of the freezer some really nice New York strips.
Yeah, I just stole some of your New York strips.
I need to feed my family.
Well, we share a doctor, Dr. Miller, who is a big proponent of the carnivore diet, either full time or in stages in your life. It's good for your health, and so we've been eating a lot more steak lately. And now there's a move by Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick to rename the New York Strip. Listen, we renamed the Gulf of America. We're renaming Black Lives Matter Plaza. Why can't we rename the New York Strip? He wants to call it the Texas Strip. He says, why do we call this the New York Strip? They're not. No one's eating any New York steak. They're eating Texas steak. So why are we calling it New York Strip? I mean, he kind of has a point. I don't know where did it get its name, New York Strip.
I don't know. That's a great question.
He says liberal New York shouldn't get credit for our hardworking ranchers, which I kind of like.
Oh, I kind of agree. I mean, like, really. Oh, here it goes. It's tied. So New York Strip is tied to Delmonico's, which was founded in 1827 and claims to be, quote, the first fine dining restaurant in America. The cut known as a Delmonico steak may have once referred to a strip steak. So that's it because of that. Because that restaurant, it labeled the beef cut the New York Strip. That's what they're saying according to the New York Post.
So we bounce everything culinary off of our French chef Andrew Gruel out of deep red Huntington Beach, California. He's a good conservative, and he says, "Hey, great idea there, but here's the thing." It is literally the most overrated cut of steak. Now, I like a New York Strip. I like ribeyes better. But he suggests,
I'm a filet mignon girl. I'm like tenderloin, filet. Although a good New York Strip is wonderful. Ribeye is
well. That's why Meredith and I get the porterhouse, where the porterhouse is half of it is the New York Strip and the other half is the filet, and we split it.
Yeah.
He thinks that the Texas should go for rebranding the Flatiron steak, which is actually a really tasty cut of meat. He says, "Why don't you call that the Texas cut?" So he's by the way, he ran. What is it? So your favorite is the filet?
I'm a filet mignon. Just give me something clean and simple, not complicated. That's me. It's my personality, not complicated.
Oh, sure. Here's how Chef Gruel ranks the cuts of steak. He says number 1 is the hanger steak. Number 2 is the flatiron. Number 3 is the spinalis dorsi. What is this? A biology test? Number 4 is the ribeye. Number 5 is the outside skirt. Number 6 is tongue. Number 7 is cheek. You got to braise those puppies because that's I've had some good cheek before, but it can be tough. Then number 8 is the Denver. Number 9 is the short rib. 10 is chuck straight. 11 is tri-tip. Where the heck is the strip? Isn't until number 16 on his list of cuts of steak.
But the ribeye, that was number 4. I do like a good hanger steak if it's like marinated, with kind of the Cuban spices or like chimichurri sauce or something like that. Oh, so good. So you're making me
see now. I want to go to Fogo de Chao now with all this talk because you can actually you can sit there and every single one of these cuts will make its way to your table.
Go there or go to my farmhouse where my freezer's full of steak.
I don't think we want to invite everybody to your farmhouse, do we?
We'll invite a couple people, not a lot of people.
That would be a great listeners trip, right? Everyone come out to... Oh, my
goodness, that would be a blast. We could get a tent out front, invite all of our listeners, do a whole big... You know how we do in the Birchmere? Do the same thing, but out there.
I'm sure Matt will be really happy that you're volunteering this. That we're gonna,
Matt will be like, be careful with the bears. Stay away from the bears.
It's 7:53. I'm hungry now.